are indeed organizing all the industrial trade unions in 38 countries, and that means that we are not at all limited to the European Union. Altogether, 200 trade unions and 7 million members. Small trade unions, but also very large trade unions like IG Metall in Germany. We are organizing the workers in the manufacturing, in industrial sectors, but also in mining, energy, textile, and so on. So you have asked me to specifically talk a little bit more about information and consultation, but I cannot disconnect that from the current reality. And the Secretary of State already mentioned a number of points, which I will not repeat, but I think we need to start with the current industrial reality. And that means that, a lot of industrial sectors today are in urgent needs. Generally, we can say that companies face liquidity problems in a number of countries and in a number of sectors. But fortunately, we have the Next Generation EU plan that has been accepted by the European Council in July. Just to repeat what you probably already all know, we are talking about 750 billion euro extra money that will be available for recovery and resilience plans at member state level. Together with the multi-annual financial framework, altogether we are speaking about 1.8 trillion euro, which will be available in the next 5 years for European policies. So the point will be that we need to use this money right. Then, first of all, some remarks about this plan. We have some concerns, and these concerns are more about where and how will the money be used. The Secretary of State already raised the issue about the national plans, the 27 national plans, the National Recovery and Resilience Plans, as it's called officially. The priorities had to be submitted by all member states last week to the European Commission. The concrete details of these plans need to be given in an action plan by the end of April next year. Well, the main criticism we have, or the first criticism we have, is where is the European coordination? Because what we don't want to see are 27 isolated and independent separated plans without strong European coordination. Industry and the industrial value chain is strongly connected inside the European Union, but also outside the European Union. So if we don't have an umbrella approach on these national recovery and resilience plans, we risk to finance little projects left and right all over Europe and the European Union, but the European coordination is lacking. And European industry and a number of European industrial sectors are strongly connected. I take the example of the aerospace sector with Airbus. Airbus is a European company. It's not a French company. It's not a German company. It's not a British company, but it's a European company that has been created by strong European coordination. Well, if we want to have in the future, strong European companies that are strong enough to indeed deal and work at the global markets, then we need a strong European coordination. So we ask from the European Commission that they indeed coordinate these plans and make sure that there is a European industrial policy and not a local or regional industrial policy set up by the 27 member states. Secondly, I raised already the issue about the liquidity, because when will this money be released? Well, the estimate is that we will see the first money floating by the end of next year. That means still 1 year to go. Well, this will not be fast enough for a whole number of companies at the moment inside your member states or inside the EU member states. So also here, we don't have an answer on how these companies will be supported. Thirdly, giving support to companies and to sectors, fine, but let's also make sure that there are conditionalities linked to this support. We can't give money to companies when the money then floats further to the shareholders. No, the shareholders will also have to accept that if the company gets support by the national recovery and resilience plans, that that this money will be used for the recovery and not for the shareholders' payment through dividends. The same with dismissals. We cannot accept that companies get money which will then be used for restructuring costs that they might implement because they have the money to pay the restructuring. And last but not least, the social dialogue dimension. The Minister of, or the Secretary of State mentioned it in his speech, and we believe that this is really important. There cannot be a workable resilience and recovery plan if there is no strong involvement of all parties, including the social partners, employers and trade unions. So also here, we must be very careful that this is guaranteed in the next weeks, in the next months, when these plans will be written. The urgencies are there. Let me and then I come to the restructuring and to information and consultation, because restructuring is announced and takes place. Just a few numbers. Do you know that in the automotive sector, and that means the automotive manufacturers, the OEMs, as we say, the Peugeots, the BMWs, the Mercedes of this continent, together with the first tier suppliers, have already announced more than 100,000 job losses for the next weeks. And they announced that. So we are in certain key sectors in Europe, absolutely in a very fast and dangerous way. We are losing jobs there, and we are losing skills, and we are losing competences there. And there is no fallback position for these workers at the moment, so they are just getting unemployed. The same is happening in the aerospace sector. It was a booming sector until February. It was a sector without any problem, and suddenly there is no order anymore in the books of Airbus. So, and that is also visible today in the supply chain and in the companies. The same with the steel sector, the same with the textile sector, and so on. So there are a number of sectors which are really in urgent need, and we see restructuring coming up. And that means that I now switch to the information and consultation topic, because restructuring means normally we need to be informed and we need to be consulted. Well, what we see today, first at European level, in the European Works Councils, that the European Works Councils are not allowed by companies, or are not used by companies, or are not put by companies into a position where they can have proper information and consultation. Let me remind you what the spirit is of the directive on the European Works Councils. The spirit of the directive, and also the definition on consultation, is that workers need to be informed at a moment where their opinion still can be taken into account for the final decision of the company. So this is absolutely crucial, that it's prior to decision, and that the decision is taken later on based on the comments and on the second opinion and on the expertise that the consultation might bring through the process. So, and this is today not happening. First of all, the European Works Council sometimes just simply. There is somebody on the line of English. Yeah, okay. So the point is that, yeah, there is echo now. So can you please switch off your microphones, please, because there is now strong echo on the line. Zoran, can you switch off the microphone? Yeah. Okay. So the information and consultation through the European Works Council is not happening today because meetings are not organized, or are organized in a format where there is no real consultation. It's purely information and no real consultation. And so this is absolutely today missing in a number of multinational companies. So I repeat, European Works Councils should be informed beforehand, should be properly consulted, have the right to be assisted by an expert, have the right to make a second opinion, and have the right to step into a negotiation about the announced plan by the management. Well, all these steps in many cases are not done. And that's European legislation. We had, and I had personally, with Commissioner Schmidt, Commissioner for Employment, but also with Commissioner Breton for Industry, we have had talks in the last weeks. And we ask the Commission, please make sure that you give an announcement to the public and to companies that they should respect European legislation. And it's not picked up by the Commission so far. And we regret this, because when there is something done again by companies or by somebody against the internal market or against competition, the European Commission reacts immediately, publicly on this, that the European rules should be followed. Well, why does the Commission not do exactly the same when the information and consultation rights and when the employment rights of workers are not respected by companies or by multinational companies? Because it's mainly multinational companies. Well, we believe that the Commission should take a strong stand today, not by losing time in new legislation, because we have good legislation. We don't need now today new legislation. We just want to have the respect of the existing legislation. That's what we ask. And that brings me to the point about, okay, what do we want for the future? Well, for me, the future, and for us, the future is now respect the current legislation, because we have the legislation at European level. We cannot now invest time in lengthy discussions about new legislation. There is need for new legislation, but that will not be the solution for the urgent problems that we face today. Today, we need just the respect of the current and the existing legislation at European level. And the same at local level, at national level. The Secretary of State referred to national traditions. Well, yeah, fine, but I mean, sorry, there is a European directive from 2002 that specifies what information and consultation should be at national level. So actually, on the right to be consulted, there is actually no space for difference between the 27 member states, because there is a national directive on national information and consultation rights, and this directive specifies the definition of consultation, and that should be the same definition everywhere in the 27 member states. The problem is that the transposition of this directive has been done wrong in many member states, and the Commission didn't act on this bad transposition. So you have a good European directive on this, but you have bad transposition. And at the end of the day, it's a transposition law that counts then to see what the rights are for member states or for workers in member states covered by the European Union. So to conclude, so we don't want to have today a debate about new legislation. We want to have the respect of existing legislation. And we want the European Commission to make sure and to make clear to multinational companies that they need to respect the existing legislation. And that's the message that we are missing today from the Commission. I talked to Schmidt, I talked to Breton. We used the case of Nissan in Barcelona, where workers at European level and even at local level were not informed. Well, we regret that the Commission didn't act on this. And we have actually high expectations from the next European presidency. We are happy that Portugal takes over the next European presidency. Today, with the German presidency, we cooperate. It's good, it works. Last week, I was able to speak directly to Angela Merkel, so she's also listening to our concerns. But we expect actually more from the Portuguese presidency, because they indeed will have to deal with the implementation of the pillar of social rights. They will have to deal with cases of restructuring, because there will be many more cases of restructuring next year than this year. They will have to deal with the European minimum wage, and I'm not going to open that debate. So there is a lot on the agenda, on the social agenda in the next year. And so in that sense, we hope as IndustriAll Europe, as Industrial Federation organizing all the workers in industry, that we will be able to cooperate closely together with the presidency from Portugal, and that we will be able to meet Minister Mendes and the team of the current government to discuss with them the industrial needs and the social needs to go through this crisis. We are facing a crisis which we have never seen before. Let's be very clear. We are already on the right track, because if you look at the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, there was no national or recovery and resilience plan. Only a few years later, with the Juncker plan, which was only 1/4 of the current budget. And there was an austerity policy, flexibilization, lowering labor rights. That agenda is not there today. So on that point, we have an important shift to the practices that we saw 10 years ago or more than 10 years ago. So that's good. And the Portuguese presidency will have that very important responsibility to secure that we are going through this further next year with full attention for the social rights of workers, including the information and consultation rights. But let's not lose time with new legislation. Let's make sure that the current legislation, which is already a good one, is fully used. Thank you very much.